Welcome to the world of Kodai channel. Have you ever wondered why the caste system in India persists like an indestructible monster? And has it profoundly impacted Indian society or not? Why does a country with the world's fifth highest GDP still have 180 million people living in extreme poverty, accounting for 12% of the total population? What is holding back the development of this country? And especially, why has a great religion like Buddhism, which originated in India, almost disappeared from the very place that gave birth to it? All answers seem to relate to one of the world's most mysterious religions, Hinduism. Today, we will explore the wonders of Hinduism, a religion so complex it's unimaginable. From the great philosopher Karl Marx to British colonial researchers to Indian Supreme Court judges, all have attempted to grasp it, but no one could define the true essence of this religion. Hinduism is likened to a chameleon of religions, and perhaps the true nature of Hinduism will be clarified in today's video. In the 19th century, British colonists spent over 20 years systematically studying Hinduism. But ultimately, the British Foreign Office had to declare that it could not provide a precise definition for it. Hinduism is simultaneously a theistic religion, an atheistic religion, a polytheistic religion, and a monistic religion. It can embody strict asceticism, yet also permit a life of hedonistic pleasure. Karl Marx once remarked that Hinduism is a fusion of ascetic and hedonistic religions. It is both a place of worship for familiar deities and a space for belief in mysterious gods. Both a religion of monks and closely tied to the dances of dancers. This stems from the fact that Hinduism lacks a unified doctrine, but is a synthesis of countless beliefs and sects. With over 1.6 billion followers, Hinduism is currently the world's third largest religion after Christianity and Islam. Notably, nearly 80% of India's population follows this religion, despite having over 3.3 billion major and minor deities. Hinduism is not considered a strictly polytheistic religion, as its deities also have a hierarchy from low to high. With three supreme deities: first, Brahma, the creator god; Shiva, the destroyer god; and Vishnu, the preserver god. Thus, Hinduism is regarded as an intermediate religion, bridging monotheism and polytheism. The diversity of sects gives Hinduism a strong inclusiveness, but also creates complexity. Methods of prayer, chanting, or worship differ among sects, leading to the situation where if an outsider wishes to convert to Hinduism, they wouldn't know where to start, as there is no one to guide them through initiation rites. Even in 1995, the Indian Supreme Court made a historic ruling that Hinduism is not a religion but merely a way of life. Although this ruling was overturned in 2017, the profound influence of Hinduism on India is undeniable. To better understand Hinduism, let us embark on a journey to explore this mysterious religion. The uniqueness of Hinduism stems from a history of religious development in India. Many people often equate Hinduism with Brahmanism, which is correct but not entirely accurate. Hinduism is essentially a continuation of Brahmanism, while Brahmanism itself developed from Vedism. Therefore, in the formation of its main belief system, India underwent a path from Vedism to Brahmanism and finally to Hinduism. Simultaneously, other beliefs such as Buddhism, Islam, and Sikhism also emerged in a historical timeline. Around 2500 BCE, the Harappan civilization arose on the Indian subcontinent. This community was formed by the Dravidians, indigenous people with dark skin and short stature, living concentrated around the Indus River basin. They called their homeland Shindu, a name that the Chinese of the Tang dynasty transliterated as Shinju or Tianzhu. About 1,000 years later, a nomadic tribe called the Aryans from the Carpathian Mountains, the border between Europe and Asia, migrated through mountainous regions to enter the Indian subcontinent. The Aryans, with their light skin, high noses, and deep-set eyes, had a distinctly different appearance from the indigenous Dravidians. Thanks to military advantages like war horses, chariots, and iron weapons, they quickly conquered the indigenous inhabitants. Since the Aryans could not pronounce the S in Shindu, they transformed it into Hindu and eventually into India as it is known today. Through the process of cultural exchange and interaction between the two, the thoughts and customs of the Aryans and Dravidians gradually merged, forming Vedism. This is the most primitive belief system of the Indus River Basin. Many believe that Hinduism originated around 3000 to 1500 BCE, but in reality, that period marks the dawn of Vedism, the ancient precursor to Hinduism. From Veda, derived from the Vedic scriptures brought by the Aryans, praising deified natural forces and ancestral heroes. The sun, moon, lightning, rivers, mountains, trees, and even animals could become deities. Although Vedism had a concept of the soul, it had not yet developed ideas of reincarnation and karma. By the 7th century BCE, Vedism evolved into Brahmanism. The biggest difference between these two religions is that Brahmanism introduced the concepts of reincarnation and karma. Brahmanism's concept of reincarnation holds that life does not begin at birth and end at death, but is an endless cycle. Humans do not only exist in the present but are also bound by the past and future. They perpetually revolve through these three periods without beginning or end. Karma becomes the main determining factor for a person's fate and reincarnation journey. Good karma brings rewards, while bad karma leads to retribution. In the Indian pantheon, the supreme deities always occupy the highest positions, clearly showing hierarchy not only among deities but also in human society. When deities are divided into classes, the division of humans becomes inevitable. Essentially, the caste system is a product of wealth differentiation in Aryan society. The ruling classes created this system to easily govern and manage the country, while linking it to religion, turning it into a tool to brainwash the lower classes. The highest class in Aryan society were the Brahmin priests, responsible for performing rituals and teaching the Vedas. They held divine power, monopolized religious rituals and cultural fields, did not participate in any productive activities, yet controlled most social resources. They were considered representatives of deities on earth and were worshipped by the people. The core principles of Brahmanism were Vedic revelation, the omnipotence of rituals, and Brahmin supremacy established to serve the interests of this class. Vedic revelation was the principle regarding the Vedas as the absolute authority of Brahmanism transmitted by deities. Only the Brahmin class was permitted to teach the Vedas. The omnipotence of rituals held that regardless of natural disasters, epidemics, or dangers, communication with deities through Brahmin priests could resolve all calamities. Offerings to deities could be food, property, alcohol, animals, and even humans. To consolidate their position, Brahmin priests continuously exaggerated the role of rituals and made them more complex. This made people dependent on them. Brahmin supremacy also ensured that any intention or action seeking to challenge their power was eliminated from its inception. Below the Brahmin class were Kshatriyas, the military nobility, including kings, generals, and high officials. They had political and military power, but no religious power. Though not equal to Brahmins, Kshatriyas still belonged to the ruling class. Next were Vaishyas, a class responsible for production and tax payment, including merchants, farmers, and artisans. These three classes were all Aryans. The lowest class in the caste system was Shudras, comprising conquered indigenous Dravidians who lost their land and freedom. They were either enslaved or had to undertake menial jobs. Brahmin priests exploited their religious power to deify this caste system. According to legend, the cosmic deity Brahmasvani was used to create the world after his death. The deity's mouth created the Brahmin class, hands created Kshatriyas, eyes created Vaishyas, and feet formed Shudras. Those who lived in compliance and accepted their fate would be reborn into a higher class in the next life. Conversely, those who disobeyed would be demoted to a lower class. Beyond these four main classes, there was a group of people marginalized from society, not associated with any part of Brahman. They were the untouchables, Dalits, or outcasts. Dalits had no status of caste, oppressed and humiliated by other classes. By the 6th century BCE, as Brahmanism became increasingly corrupt, Indian society was immersed in caste conflicts. New religious movements opposing Brahmin privileges and aiming for people's welfare began to emerge. Among them, Buddhism was the most prominent. In 563 BCE, Prince Siddhartha Gautama of the Kapilavastu kingdom was born. Prince Siddhartha Gautama was born in Kapilavastu, a prosperous small kingdom in the border region between present-day India and Nepal. Before age 29, Prince Siddhartha lived in a solid palace, without worries about food and clothing, never having stepped outside the royal palace. However, at age 29, during an accidental outing from the royal palace, he witnessed human suffering, birth, aging, sickness, and death. These experiences awakened him, leading to his decision to renounce the throne and luxurious life, embarking on a path of spiritual practice. After 6 years of ascetic practice, Siddhartha attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, thus founding Buddhism. He was later revered as Buddha Shakyamuni. Over the next 45 years, the Buddha turned the Dharma wheel, teaching about compassion and wisdom. At age 80, he entered Parinirvana at Kushinagar. Although Buddhism has concepts of reincarnation and karma similar to Brahmanism, it rejects caste distinctions and promotes equality among all beings. Buddhism does not acknowledge the supremacy of the Brahmin class, nor the role of sacrificial rituals in human salvation. This weakened the power of Brahmanism, making Buddhism popular among the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th classes of ancient Indian society. Buddhism developed very quickly, attracting even Brahmin converts. However, the person with the greatest contribution to Buddhism's brilliant development and worldwide spread was Emperor Ashoka of the Mauryan dynasty. The Mauryan dynasty was established in 322 BCE and quickly became a vast empire in the Indian subcontinent. In 273 BCE, Ashoka ascended the throne and implemented territorial expansion. Soon after, he conquered the Kalinga region in the southern subcontinent, unifying the entire territory. From the Himalayas in the north, south to Mysore, east to Assam, and west to the Hindu Kush, forming an unprecedented unified empire. 7 years after ascending the throne, Ashoka publicly converted to Buddhism and made it the state religion of the Mauryan dynasty. The reason for Ashoka's conversion was not only religious belief but also because he saw Buddhism as an effective political tool. After unifying the country, King Ashoka faced the great challenge of managing a multi-ethnic and multicultural nation. Using military force and violence to rule was clearly not. Therefore, he needed a means to consolidate royal power and reduce the influence of the aristocracy. Buddhism, with its ideology rejecting Brahmin supremacy and emphasizing equality, became the ideal tool for King Ashoka. This was particularly effective when the Brahmin priests in the court were often in cooperation. Buddhism was founded by Siddhartha Gautama, who came from the Kshatriya class, perfectly fitting into Ashoka's policies. Moreover, Buddhism also received strong support from the Vaishya class, merchants and producers who suffered under the caste system. During the prosperous era of the Maurya dynasty, commerce flourished, merchant guilds were widely established, measurement systems were standardized, currency stabilized, and trade networks connected most major cities in northern India. Buddhism, with its ideology closely supportive of the merchant class, became an important means for Ashoka to strengthen relations with the Vaishya class. After the Buddha Shakyamuni entered Nirvana, his disciples and followers organized 3 major councils to systematize and transmit his teachings. From then on, Buddhism began to expand beyond Indian territory, laying the foundation for the spread of the Dharma worldwide. However, in 185 BCE, when the Maurya dynasty collapsed, Buddhism in India began to decline. From the 1st to the 3rd century, under the Kushan Empire, Buddhism was once again honored as the state religion thanks to strong support from 2 generations of emperors. This was the golden age of Buddhism in India, with numerous followers and influence so strong that it once shook the caste system. However, no empire is eternal. After the Kushan Empire collapsed, Buddhism's development began to be severely affected. Since being used as a political tool by royal power, Buddhism in India no longer existed independently but heavily relied on the patronage of nobles and royalty. This made Buddhism vulnerable and lacking independent vitality. About 100 years after the Buddha's passing, differences in interpreting doctrines and precepts led to internal divisions in Buddhism, forming about 18 to 20 different schools. These schools frequently disputed, causing significant damage to Buddhist unity. By the 1st century, Buddhism further split into Mahayana and Hinayana, and conflicts between these two branches further weakened Buddhism's influence. When the monk Xuanzang traveled to India in the 7th century, according to records in the Great Tang records, he discovered that many former Buddhist holy sites had fallen. Monasteries became dilapidated, and the number of monks sharpened. By the 8th century, Shankara, born into a Brahmin family, absorbed some Buddhist doctrines and reformed Brahmanism, transforming it into Hinduism. This marked the end of Buddhism in India and opened the development of a new religion with strong influence to this day. Hinduism essentially preserved the teachings of Brahmanism but emphasized the concept of Brahman-Atman unity. According to this, everything in the universe is a manifestation of Brahman. The only eternal entity, Atman, is a temporary manifestation without independent existence. Only when achieving harmony between Brahman and Atman can humans reach ultimate truth and liberation. This view appears similar to the concept of Tao in Chinese Taoist philosophy, and the state of Brahman-Atman unity. Resembles the concept of liberation from self-attachment in Tiantai Buddhism, as mentioned in the Law. At that point, humans reach the state of nirvana, enjoying eternal happiness and supreme bliss. Simultaneously, the concept of Brahman-Atman unity was also used to justify the suffering of the lowest social class. The pain they endured was explained as their failure to achieve harmony with Brahman. Once Atman merges with Brahman, all becomes equal. According to this theory, suffering in this life is merely a way to eliminate karmic obstacles and move closer to liberation. Therefore, the lowest class, suffering more, was even considered closer to the state of Brahman-Atman unity than higher classes. After Shankara's reform, Hinduism became more dominant and continued to rationalize the caste system, creating tight social control and pushing Buddhism out of the land where it once flourished most strongly. Hinduism not only absorbed many elements from Buddhism but also reimagined Buddha Shakyamuni as the ninth avatar of Vishnu, the preserver god in Hinduism. According to this, the story recounts that when evil forces, represented by the demons Rakshasas, became arrogant and powerful, Vishnu incarnated as the Buddha, descending to earth to create Buddhism. The reason for Buddhism's appearance was to propagate a false theory about abolishing the caste system, aiming to deceive and weaken the power of the Rakshasas. When following this theory, the demons gradually lost their source of strength, ultimately leading to self-destruction. This story not only countered Buddhism but also reaffirmed Hinduism's legitimacy. The special adaptability and inclusiveness of Hinduism transformed this religion into a chameleon of faith. Whenever expanding to new lands, Hinduism easily absorbed local deities, redefining them as manifestations of Hindu gods. This tactic was not only effective in winning the trust of the local people but also helped Hinduism expand, though it also had to confront other beliefs directly. However, from the 8th century, the Indian subcontinent began to face invasions by large Muslim armies from the Arab Empire. Islam is a monotheistic religion with an exclusionary aim, and during the expansion of territory, Muslims carried out many suppressions against both Hindu and Buddhist followers. This marked the end of Buddhism in India. In 1203, the Nalanda Buddhist monastery, a great academic center by the Ganges River, was burned down by Muslim forces, marking the demise of Buddhism in its homeland. But the question arises, why was Hinduism also suppressed by Muslims? Yet it survived and eventually replaced Islam's position in India, while Buddhism was completely alone. The answer lies in the tolerance and foundation of Hinduism. As early as the 8th century, when the Arab Empire controlled the area that is now Pakistan, they began expanding into Indian territory in the 11th and 12th centuries. By 1206, the Delhi Sultanate was established, marking the official dominance of Muslims in India. Muslims hope to transform this vast subcontinent into a completely Islamic. In this process, Buddhism was easily destroyed due to its centralized structure. All power and knowledge were tightly bound to the monasteries. When the monasteries were destroyed and the monks expelled, Buddhism lost its roots and quickly declined. In contrast, Hinduism did not have a centralized structure. The roots of Hinduism lie in a caste system and lifestyle deeply ingrained in Indian life for thousands of years. The Brahmin class, representing religious authority, was widely distributed across villages, making Hinduism impossible to eradicate by destroying religious centers as a. Each village had the presence of Brahmins, helping this religion maintain vitality and resilience against oppression. Additionally, Hinduism's ability to integrate and transform helped it maintain its position in Indian society, even when facing invasions from other beliefs. This explains why Buddhism declined, while Hinduism not only survived but thrived to become the main religion of the Indian subcontinent to this day. As long as the Brahmin class and the caste system exist, even if Hindu temples are destroyed, this religion cannot be overthrown. After establishing administration in India, Muslims, as conquerors, turned to governance and had to consider effective ways to manage the native population. Initially, they emphasized that Islam is a noble religion where everyone is equal before Allah and all Muslims are brothers. This attracted many from the lowest social classes in India, even those from the Dalit caste, to change their names and convert to Islam. However, after conversion, these followers began to demand equality with the Muslim rulers. This put the Muslim rulers in a dilemma. They had to maintain a certain distance from the lower social classes, while trying to attract higher caste Hindus to convert to Islam, to enhance power and consolidate the ruling group. Although many Indians changed religions, their traditional customs and lifestyles were still maintained. Notably, within the Muslim community in India, notions of lineage also existed, similar to the spirit of the caste system. Ancient Arabs often trace their origins to Adam, the common ancestor of humanity in Islam, equivalent to Adam in Christianity. When Islam emerged, the Prophet Muhammad used the spirit of equality and broad brotherhood to break down narrow tribal ideologies, uniting Arabs into a powerful nation. However, notions of noble lineage remain very prevalent. Those with kinship ties to the Prophet Muhammad or from Arab noble families were often considered noble and easily accepted as rulers. This led to the strange reality that, over centuries of rule, Muslims not only failed to fully Islamize the Indian subcontinent but were themselves caste ized. Essentially, the Indian Muslim community was divided into three main classes: Arabs, Alaf, and Arzal. First, Arabs are descendants of Muslim conquerors such as Sayyids, Quraysh, Pashtuns, and other Arab nobles. Even within this class, they were further divided into smaller ranks, with lineage closer to the Prophet Muhammad being more important. And the second class, Alaf, are Hindus who converted to Islam from the middle or commoner classes. And finally, Arzal are converts from the lowest class in Hinduism, usually Dalits. In the Indian Muslim community, the Arab class is seen as descendants of the Prophet Muhammad and holds a noble position, while non-Arabs are considered inferior, and this is explained as the will of Allah. Ironically, many from the Dalit or lower classes in Hinduism converted to Islam hoping to break the chains of caste and seek equality. But ultimately, they remained trapped in a new hierarchical system. After all efforts to change, they still could not escape the fate of being considered a lowly social class, even after changing their beliefs. The final result is that those from the converted Muslim community, but with origins in the lowest class, continued to be at the bottom of society, even within the Muslim community. The caste system is deeply ingrained in the. Although the caste system was officially abolished by law after India gained independence in 1947, in practice, this system so profoundly influences how It can be said that many social issues in India today are related to Hinduism and the deeply ingrained caste system. A heartbreaking example of the consequences of this ideology occurred on the evening of April 20, 2019, in Hyderabad, India. A woman named Sindhu Sharma was severely abused by her husband-in-laws and a domestic helper. The attack started from the upper floor and continued to the lower floor, leaving Sindhu unable to stand up. Similar abuses had occurred many times over the 7 years since her marriage. The main reason for her abuse was that the dowry she brought at marriage was insufficient. The injustices did not stop at the dowry. Sindhu had given birth to 2 daughters, which further dissatisfied her in-laws as they desired a grandson. Her in-laws and Bashida repeatedly urged him to divorce Sindhu and marry someone else, hoping that a new bride would bear a son and bring more dowry. There are countless other heartbreaking incidents related to caste discrimination. The typical case is that of a father hiring someone to kill his daughter's husband because they married outside their caste. Paranay Puramula and Amruta Vashimi married for love. Just 1 month after the wedding, Paranay was killed by a man wielding an axe. Paranay, 23 years old, while Amruta, 21 years old, was a girl from an upper caste, living in a wealthy and powerful family. Her family considered this marriage a betrayal of the long-standing social stratification and discrimination system in India. Since high school, her parents had warned her not to associate with friends from lower caste, especially Dalit. The complexity of caste was no longer in Amruta's mind when she met Paranay and fell in love with him. When her father discovered the relationship, Amruta was beaten, had her phone and computer confiscated, and in the 6 years that followed, the two only met briefly a few times. As father, his daughter. He said, "I could even marry her to someone from an upper caste. I want my daughter to marry someone from a lower caste, no matter." In college, Amruta feared being married off to someone else, so she planned to run away with Paranay. They intended to apply for visas to Australia. But months later, Amruta became pregnant. The couple had to cancel their plans. They married in a temple witnessed by a few friends, without the blessing of Amruta's parents. At that time, Amruta's father had conspired to hire someone. He paid $150,000 to the person who killed him. Someone attacked Paranay. What did you do? This murder caused a shock. Hundreds of people came to Paranay's house to support his relatives. They intended to erect a statue of the young man. After Paranay's death, his family decided to take Amruta to a hospital 3 hours away to give birth safely. When they tried to rent an apartment there, some landlords refused because they knew they were Dalits. Caste discrimination is something we face every day. Today's video ends here. Next topic, Dawn. Subscribe to the Gian and Ido channel so you don't miss exciting videos.